We're so excited to be here. We're recording season 1, episode 1 of the WinShape Marriage Podcast. We are so excited. So thank you so much for being here. Before we get into the marriage myths that we're going to debunk today, we're going to have you debunk them. Can you just tell us a little bit about who is Julie?
Julie is married to Jay for 34 years. I have a daughter, Ashley, who lives in Arkansas with her husband, Keith. And we have a dog and a horse.
Wow.
Those are all important. I'm a counselor by training, a certified family life educator, and I've been working in this field for a really long time, specifically working with marriages and families to help people thrive and flourish in their relationships.
So you've been working with couples for decades.
Yes.
Okay, so in your decades of working with couples, I'm sure you've heard these myths that we're going to talk about twice, 20 times, maybe 200 times. So we're going to jump in. We kind of teased one of the myths in the intro. So the first myth that I'm going to throw at you is, if you marry the right person, you will always feel in love.
I think that's a really common myth that people do believe, and they get scared when they get to this place in their relationship when maybe they're just not feeling the love right now. Maybe it's a challenging season or there's a lot of stress. And the truth is that you learn in the midst of marriage, you kind of have hills and valleys, and sometimes the person that you're with isn't very lovable. And that's when you recognize that it isn't all about the love. It's about a commitment, a covenant that you made between this person, you and the Lord, to navigate this relationship and understand that at the same time they're not lovable, that there are also times that you're probably not lovable as well. Yeah. And so you have to look past that to understand how do I love them well in this season, in spite of it feeling kind of prickly at the moment.
Mm-hmm. So it kind of ebbs and flows. It's not going to be just love and exciting and roses and butterflies all the time.
Yeah, when you think about just being with someone, two different individuals who grew up in two different homes with different ways of doing things, the expectation that you would come together and just agree on everything all the time and do things the same all the time is not very realistic.
Okay, good. Well, thank you. So another one kind of similar as far as what you bring to a relationship or what you give in a relationship. You just told us you don't always feel in love. What about this myth? Marriage is 50-50, right down the middle, 50-50.
I would say marriage is 100-100. And this is an interesting one because a lot of people come to marriage thinking I am all in, but there are people in their lives that are kind of whispering in the background, hey, if it doesn't work, you can always bail. So it's almost like leaving the window cracked a little bit, which is the 50-50 kind of thing.
Right.
So if I'm a child of divorce, and both my husband and I are. Okay. And so when we came into this idea of marriage, I said, hey, if you would ever consider divorce as an option, I just need to know now because I can't go there. I've already lived through that and it was very painful. And so making the decision coming in, I'm 100% in. That window is closed, the door is closed, and I am going to walk with you and figure it out with you. Through the tough times, through sickness, through whatever, we will commit to be a team and walk through it all in. It's a very different mindset than being 50-50. Hey, if you do your part, I'll do my part. Right. No, we're both going to come in and we're going to give 100% and do our parts to make this marriage work.
Would you say that some seasons it's a little more like you might feel like you're giving 100 and maybe your spouse in that season might be giving 80 or they might not just have the capacity to give 100? Or do you think, no, it's always 100, 100? Like, does that make sense?
I think the commitment is always 100,
Okay.
100. Are there seasons where maybe your spouse is going through a particularly difficult, stressful time at work, or they're dealing with an aging parent, or you have young children and one of you is spending more time with the children than the other, and it's just hard? Yes.
Okay.
We all go through seasons like that. And so you may feel like, man, I just feel like I'm giving all the time, and you're not. And that is an opening to a conversation.
Yeah.
Okay. Where do we go from here versus harboring that and becoming resentful and bitter in your heart?
I think that's great, though, because I feel like that would be the follow-up of like, but I know there's going to be times where,
for sure,
one of us is going through something, but I love what you said, the commitment is 100, 100, because that doesn't waver.
No, it doesn't waver. And I can very vividly remember a time in our marriage. Our daughter was very young, and Jay was on the road all the time, and he was just exhausted. So he would come home and be just like, I need to go sleep.
Yeah.
And I felt like, gosh, I've been here by myself. I need some help.
Yeah.
And I walked over to him, and he was just so stressed. And I said, can I just pray for you? Mm-hmm. And he lost it. He just started sobbing. And he looked up at me and he goes, I'm so tired. I don't even know where to turn right now, which led to a really good, honest, hard conversation where we made some tough decisions in that moment to do some things differently. But I think if I had come at him and said, you're not helping. Right. I'm stressed and I'm tired too. That probably
you're not giving your 50%.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Okay, so a little bit of a different train of the percentages, so to speak.
Okay.
We'll move on to a marriage myth that says your spouse completes you. They should fulfill all your needs.
I think that's a really popular belief in our culture today. And I think a lot of it has to do with people becoming isolated. I remember reading an article from a woman who said she was afraid of getting married because she thought she'd lose all of her friends, and it would just be she and her husband. And this myth is a very dangerous one because human beings will always disappoint you. If you are looking to your spouse to be your everything, you're going to be sorely disappointed. The Lord completes us. And I think He gives us, I think this is the mystery of marriage. He gives us the opportunity to leave and to cleave and to become one, not losing your individual identities, but to be able to come together as one, as a couple, and complement each other. I talk a lot about leveraging the strengths of each other because you come together with different strengths and different opportunities for growth and different needs. But the idea of you looking to your spouse to be your everything, your confidant, your lover, your best friend, your everything, who can live up to that? So it's very important for healthy marriages that you do look to your spouse as your friend and a confidant and your lover, a prayer partner, but you also have a circle of people who are supportive of you, who are supportive of your marriage, who are speaking life into you so that you don't put all that pressure on one person I don't know who can live up to that. That would be a lot.
Well, and we're all sinners.
Oh,
we
saved
all
by
need
grace, right?
And so we are going to fail.
Yes.
And talk about the pressure that would put on you to think, I have to fulfill all the needs. I think I would go around with just this weight on my shoulders almost because I'm going to fail. I'm destined to fail. Whereas if I look at it as the opportunity to bring my strengths, bring what I can complement, but know that it's a compliment. It's not a fulfilling every single thing.
Yes.
I think that, just take off some of that weight.
Yes. Well, and I think about the condition of your heart, because when you place those unrealistic expectations on your spouse, you're bound to get resentful and bitter where they're, quote unquote, not meeting your expectations or meeting your needs. And when you think about scripture and it talks about guarding your heart, there is so much to that, because as a man or woman thinketh in their heart, so is he or she. And you are training your brain about how to think about your spouse. And you've got to be careful. They are human. They will make mistakes. They will disappoint you. And how you engage them in the midst of all of that also speaks to how you're going to either build up your relationship or you're going to just start chinking it away and tearing down. Yeah.
I feel like the theme I'm hearing, even as we've gone through these three myths so far, is just how dangerous, just like how dangerous the thought yes. process can be.
Yes.
So we're going through 7. So
okay.
Number 4, marriage myth number 4. If your spouse really loves you, you know what? This one, it kind of goes back to number 3 a little bit. So just let's see how you approach this one. We'll start with number 4 here. If your spouse really loves you, they will know what you want and what you need.
Ooh. Now we're really in the danger zone, because this is like expecting your spouse to read your mind. And nobody is a mind reader. And so if you go into marriage expecting your spouse to just know you well enough to know what you need or how they can help you, but you don't tell them that, you're setting them up. And who wants to set up their spouse?
It's like a mousetrap.
It is a trap. And the idea would be that you say what you need. I need help with this. Or I feel really loved when you do these things, or when you say these words, when you compliment me in public, when you talk to your friends in a positive way about me, or when you don't, when you're not sarcastic with me. I feel loved. Tell your spouse that. Or I feel cherished, or I feel respected. But speak it versus thinking it and expecting them to just know it, because there is no way for them to know those things. I don't care how long you've been married. That is a really good habit to get into. If you will get into a regular rhythm of being able to say, hey, I need this. I need your help with this. Or tell me about that and how I can support you in your efforts. That will be helpful to me. Then you're putting it out there versus expecting them to just know.
I feel like a light bulb just went off when you were describing. It's not even just telling them your need, like what I need help. I need help with the kids, or I need help with bedtime. I need help with something around the house. But it's also telling them what makes you feel good. Like it's both. It's things that you want and things that you need. So a want, like I really like when you give me the compliments. Like that's maybe not, that might be feel more like a want. It's a positive thing. So it's not always just expressing the needs that might be coming up, but it's also expressing, hey, what makes you feel good? I feel like that's even just a cool distinction too.
Well, and I think there's all these times where you actually notice that your spouse does something that you appreciate. Maybe it's emptying the dishwasher, or they take out the trash, or they let you sleep and play with the kids, or whatever it is. You don't ever tell them that. You think to yourself, oh, that felt so good. I'm so appreciative. But you don't tell them. And I think that's a missed opportunity in marriage to help your spouse know that you actually noticed.
Yeah. You've talked about before, like building that culture. There's a culture
gratitude.
of appreciation, of gratitude, and how much of a difference maker that can be.
Yes, for sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to keep it rolling.
Okay.
Oh, I like this one. Happy couples do everything together. What do you think?
No. In fact, if you want to be happy, don't do everything together. Now, there's a balance there. Okay. If you're doing more apart than you are together, the caution flag is flying because now you're really in a dangerous place. But typically in a marriage, people refuel in different ways. They have different hobbies, and maybe it's exercise. One runs, one walks, or goes and works out, but you do some things differently.
Okay.
The brain craves novelty in relationship. And so when you go away and you do your thing, even if it's going somewhere and being quiet and reading a book or doing your quiet time, you go away, you anticipate coming back together. And it is in that anticipation that you look forward to seeing the person that you love. And so it is a myth that happy couples do everything together. Happy couples do a lot of things together, but they make space and time and give basically permission. Like, I don't need to be with you every second of every day. I enjoy being around you. Mm-hmm. And there are also some things. I horseback ride. Jay does not like horses. He just doesn't like to be around them. Okay. So I go and I do that. And honestly, it's like therapy for me. It's the thing I do that I can't think about anything else when I'm doing it, but being on that horse and focused on how I'm riding. Yeah. And that's healthy. And I anticipate coming back and being with him.
And then it gives him the opportunity to ask you about that. And then it brings you into new conversations. So it's like, even if you're not doing all these things together, you have some time apart, it gives you this opportunity. Hey, well, we can still connect on it because we can talk about it.
Yes.
Tell me about your horseback riding. Did you have a good time?
Yes. And I love the word you used, connection. That's the goal here. If you're together all the time, but you're not talking, you're just in the same room, that's like being roommates. Right. What we're talking about is a healthy connectedness, enjoying doing some things together and some things apart. Jay and I stumbled upon walking together in the evenings because when Ashley was little, that was what settled her down. Okay. So we started that when she was an infant. We do it to this day. And when we don't do that, I feel like something's missing from my day because that's kind of our time to download about what happened during the day and just what we're thinking about. It's just very easy back and forth conversation. And I look forward to that.
Yeah. So moral of the story with this myth is that girls' nights and boys' nights are okay. Having fun with your girlfriends or with your guys is okay. It's okay. Happy couples do that. And then they come back together.
Right. It's just, if you're doing that more than you're with your spouse, pay attention. Okay. Something's up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Cool. Thank you for busting that myth for us. All right. We have to bring in a sex and intimacy myth here. So help us bust this one.
Okay.
Married sex is boring.
Only if you make it so. And actually, the research says married sex is far better than having sex outside of marriage. And that has a lot to do with when people are single and they're participating in sex outside of marriage, it's typically a very selfish, self-serving act. When you come together in marriage, it is about learning about each other, being able to have conversations. I like this. I don't like that. Or I'm uncomfortable. I just need some time. So help me and go slow. So I think it's more about in a married sex situation, you're loving your spouse, and it's an act of worship. I mean, the Lord talks about sex as a gift and an act of worship, and learning to love your spouse well through intimacy. I also think that when you think about married sex and you're like, no, sex is boring, there's other things that are going on because it's not just about what's happening in the bedroom. Everything outside the bedroom sets the stage for sexual intimacy in the bedroom. How you treat each other, how you engage with each other. Are you connected or do you feel disconnected? And do you do the same old all the time? I can remember talking with my friend Pat Love, who wrote the book Hot Monogamy.
Okay.
And she said, nobody wants to eat peanut butter and jelly every single day. And so when you think about your sex life, you need to be careful about just getting into this rut of same old, right. and asking each other, hey, like, what could we do to spice things up a little bit and do some things differently? And I think it just takes time.
Yeah.
When you first come together, it might be a little awkward and people don't want to talk about that because like, what's wrong with us? Nothing's wrong with you.
Right.
It's just a matter of learning each other and your likes and your dislikes and how do we love each other well.
Yeah. I love that key point about what happens outside the bedroom impacts what happens inside the bedroom. So if your date nights are boring or if your conversations at dinner are boring, then maybe that is why you're falling for this myth of this married sex is boring. But it's even starting, it's not always just starting right in the bedroom. Like, what can we fix in the bedroom? What can we do outside of the bedroom that will help spice this up a little bit more?
Yeah. Well, and if that's something that you're struggling with, Julie Slattery wrote a great book called God, Sex, and Your Marriage.
Okay.
Excellent resource. She's got Authentic Intimacy as a website with lots of really good information. So you don't have to stay where you are. If that's something that you're dealing with, get some of these really good resources and then try some things differently.
And we can link some of those in the description of this episode.
Yes.
So you can definitely link to some of those. Okay. We have been rocking and rolling. We were going to bust 7, and we are on marriage myth number 7.
Bring it on.
Last one here. There is a universal path in marriage, like having children.
I don't think there's a universal path. I think anybody who's been married for any length of time will tell you there's no cookie cutter approach. You need to sit down as a couple and think about, where are we? What are our goals as a family? What do we feel like the Lord is calling us to? And be very, very prayerful about what you think your path forward is. Because if you haven't sat down and had that conversation, and it's not a one-time conversation, I feel like it's an ongoing one. But if you haven't begun that conversation and carry it forward in your marriage, a lot of people believe they have the right to speak into your marriage and to tell you. And it could be your boss. It could be your in-laws. Could be your own parents. It could be friends. And sometimes we invite people, trusted people, we invite them in to think through things with us and pray with us as we're thinking about the next season, so to speak. Maybe it's having children.
Right.
But ultimately, that's a decision that you and your spouse need to make together. And I just think about the times for us. There's been lots of decisions, career moves, children, how you celebrate the holidays, do we move or not move? And we have just come to this place where, as we're praying through things, it feels important that both of us believe that this is the direction that we move in. Okay. And if either one of us have pause in our spirit, I just feel like that is not what God is calling us to. Yeah. We don't move. We wait until we both feel comfortable with the move forward, the next step. And sometimes you can get impatient with that. Yeah. But I'm telling you, the times that I have regretted are when we didn't wait on the Lord. I've never regretted waiting on Him to just clearly make it abundantly clear to both of us, this is where I'm calling you next.
So no universal path for everyone, but listening to the Lord, praying, waiting for that green light to make the right decision for your path is kind of the advice you would give.
Yes, and I can think about early on in our marriage, we would go to people and say, so here's the choices, what should we do? And they would start talking it through and they're like, we're not going to tell you.
Yeah.
We're just going to say, hey, We think pros and cons, like this is what we've heard you tell us. Now you all need to go back and pray and make a decision together. And I thought, man, that's very wise counsel. And I appreciated that early on, and I appreciate it today.
Yeah, absolutely. I think back to something I said earlier about like the weight. And I feel like with a lot of these myths, it feels like when you start to fall for them, they're heavy. Like if you fall for that myth that, well, there's this universal path and we're not following it, like you feel so much pressure, you feel so heavy, your shoulders just feel like, you're walking around hunched over. But I feel like if you have this kind of clarity that no, like these aren't true, like we just busted all of them, you just walk a little bit lighter and you're like, okay, we'll work on this together, we'll figure this out together, we'll seek the Lord together, and then we'll move forward.
Yes. Yeah. The Lord did not design us to carry all of that on our shoulders. He says, lay your burdens down at the foot of the cross. Give them to me. Pick up my yoke. And I think that that's got to be front and center as you do relationship. Because, man, if you're trying to do it out of the flesh, it's going to be really, really hard. And this idea of the mystery of marriage, God says, put me at the center, focus on me, look at your spouse through the eyes of Christ, and one foot in front of the other. You're not solving everything today. One foot in front of the other. I am faithful. I will guide you. I am trustworthy.
Yeah, so good. So good. Well, I appreciate you taking some time to walk us through these and bust them wide open. So do you have any final thoughts for any of our listeners on just these marriage myths that we talked about, or any last words of wisdom that you want to share with us?
I think the one thing that I would say is be careful who you listen to. The culture can mislead you. The popular thing can mislead you about what truth is. And so I think just coming back to the Word and paying attention to people who are biblically rooted and research informed in what they're sharing with you about marriage, that's where you're going to find the richness and the things that will be helpful to you as you seek to be intentional about caring for your marriage and being in a place where you're both flourishing and thriving in your relationship.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing with us, Julie.
My pleasure.
Thank you guys for listening to Season 1, Episode 1 of the WinShape Marriage Podcast. We'll be back next week with a new episode. Have a marriage question you'd like answered on the show? We'd love to hear from you. Visit winshapemarriage.org/podcast to submit your question today.